Blog Talk Radio.
All right, race fans. Y'all know what time it is. It's Tuesday night, Race Chat Live. Got some partners in crime here with me tonight. Of course, the ever wonderful Miss Lee Reed, Mama Bear of the bunch. Then we got Tasmanian Devil Taz Taylor, and we should have later on the one and only Karaoke Craig, DJ Moore. Oh, man. Another trip, another sad day, another sad moment coming home. You know, it's about 50 to go where you realize, man, it's been a long weekend, but Talladega, the song by Eric Church, you just want to stay. Like, you just want to stay there. You don't want to go home. And I've been going for 23 times. This is my 23rd trip to Talladega Superspeedway, and it's no change. You know, the moment you open your eyes on Sunday morning, you realize, like, you know, you were there for everything else, and now today is the grand finale. And you know, it's an experience that if you've never been to a NASCAR race, pretty sure that very few people that would listen to this show have not been to a NASCAR race. It's more than a race. It is, hey, that's the slogan of Talladega. It's more than a race, it's Talladega. And it's so much to that. We just got word earlier today that 2008 was the last time that Talladega Superspeedway had seen this many folks. We got something good going on. I understand the dangerous element that has been created with superspeedway racing, and it's very alarming to see a driver like Ryan Preece get knocked around, slammed around. I mean, the forces that you've seen within the cockpit were not something that you typically see in this day and age in NASCAR. And to see the door bar of Kyle Larson's car visible out, hanging out the door, you know, I understand the element of danger behind this race. But if you, over the last week and month, we've continued to hear, oh, we need to change this and we need to change that. And you have drivers who are saying, hey, this is, you know, somebody's going to get hurt out here, and I don't like this style of racing. If I could the race off, I would. that's oil and water for what the fans are there for. You can't get a lot of fans to Kentucky Speedway. You can't get a lot of fans to Chicagoland. You can't get a lot of fans to go to Texas. When you open the gates at Talladega, you open the gates at Daytona, fans flock in. If your name's Kyle Larson, or your name's Ryan Newman, or your name's any of the guys that had something bad to say about this weekend's racing, you literally spit in the face of these fans. If you think this style racing is too dangerous, if you are worried about the longevity of your career or anything to that nature, when you get into that car, I've been told to believe you probably don't belong in that car. You probably need to go find something else that's a little less dangerous. I promise you, boys and girls, if you went to that dirt track on Saturday night and you picked any one of them drivers, it doesn't matter if they was racing Stingers, street stocks, sprint cars, late models, fans, one of those drivers would have gladly stepped in that Cup car or the ARCA car or that Xfinity car and drove the hell out of it. So when you are standing there as a driver and you're putting down the sport that pays you millions of dollars, and I understand the safety aspects of it. You're literally tearing our hearts apart when you disgrace the track, when you say you don't want to be here. These fans flock to these races for a reason. And I hate to say it, a lot of it has to do with because you're willing to put your ass on the line. You're willing to put that show for these boys and girls. You're willing to go out there and hammer down till you see a flag that ends that race. That's why we go to the racetrack. If that's not in your blood, if that's not what you're there to do, you're there to draw a paycheck or, smile for your sponsors, maybe take up golf. Don't be in a race car. These guys, these boys and girls get in these race cars every weekend at the dirt track. You know what? Every year across the nation, we lose a driver. We lose a couple of drivers. Sprint cars, midgets, we lose drivers yearly. Other drivers, other classes, maybe not so dangerous, but there's still freak accidents that happen. And every year we hear about them. There is a sense of danger in what we do. I don't really know how to close out this monologue because we got other shit to do. But I did want to speak from my heart as somebody who goes to these races. 23 times I've been to Talladega Superspeedway. And 23 times I've left with a humongous smile on my face. Maybe that's all I got to say. Ladies and gentlemen.
The boys look like they had a lot of fun.
Oh, God. It was so awesome. Like, this is the first year that we ever brought their friends. And we predicted this, like, years ago, that when we started bringing the kids and they were young, like, one day, we're going to be sitting back and we're going to be watching them enjoy what we've enjoyed. And this was the first year that we turned the lights off in the camper at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we watched our boys sit out with their friends in front of the campfire and, get a little bit closer to becoming men. And that can't take that away from me either. So, got a lot to talk about here tonight. Not trying to get all
I was just going to say, Chris,
sentimental and emotional.
I totally get the feeling of dread of having to leave the racetrack. There's one nice thing I like about doing the Xfinity and now the truck races at Mid-Ohio, because that race is on a Saturday afternoon, and if you camp, you don't have to leave until Sunday morning. So you get to have that one last night after the race to party with your friends, whatever, and it's a drag having to leave the following morning, but at least you still get a little bit of camaraderie after the race too.
No. Yeah, I can't wait until the day that I wake up and they tell me that Talladega is going to become a night race. That would be so amazing. And then you would have a lot less drunk folks trying to leave. And I think that would, you know, just in that itself, just by that simple fact right there, it would be enough for me to want to put lights around Talladega Superspeedway. But you know what? They're afraid of the monsters that live at night, and that's one hell of a party. So, you know, and I tell you, when you go out there in those campgrounds and you're amongst those 200,000 people, it is something very spiritual. It is, you know, it's just something. It's just something about that place. It's more than a race. It's Talladega, and I wish you guys would just put your money aside, $10 a week, and come on down here and let us show you a good October and show you how we do it down here, that big track, and we'll even show you a little yellow sticker on the back of you so everybody knows you're a Talladega rookie. But anyway, Kyle Busch proved that he wasn't a rookie, and Jeff Burton back in victory lane. Taz Taylor, are you even here, Taz? I have not heard you.
I'm here there, good old sir.
All right. Well, let me get back in my seat. You know, I stood up to perform my my opening monologue. You know, we got Xfinity to jump right into. Of course, I do want to say something about the ARCA race. Wow, it was a lot of wrecks. Typical of ARCA. But Xfinity, man, I just don't know if I was expecting that much carnage out of the Xfinity race. But, you know, Jeff Burton, man, a guy who has had his career up and down, has never been with the same team for more than one season. You know, with Jordan Anderson's team of all things, like this guy 10 years ago was showing up at the track with an open trailer, right, and a dually, racing a truck. Now he's an owner of an Xfinity race team, and now they can hang a trophy in the shop because they are victorious at Talladega Superspeedway. But Taz Taylor, maybe you've had a chance to pull up some of that Xfinity news. Did you guys get a chance to watch the race? Is there anything that kind of stood out?
Mainly for me, I didn't really. I don't know why I didn't watch the highlights. I didn't get to watch the highlights, but the main highlights I caught was basically the carnage that happened that you mentioned there, Chris. And good thing that these drivers are okay, because wow, those were some scary looking wrecks, to say the least. And I think if I've heard on the Cup broadcast right, about 7 cars finished with like little to no damage out of that entire race.
Yeah, it was something to that extent there, Taz Taylor. It was definitely a long, wild ride. I think the race actually was just as long as the 500 the following day. So, yeah, it was definitely one that we won't forget. Then Blaine Perkins, I think all of us held our breath after that horrific flip. Kind of reminded me of the Rusty Wallace flip back years ago. You know, there is no grass anymore down there, but he just got turned in the right area and went up over the car, similar to what we've seen Ryan Newman do a few years ago. Miss Lee, you must have seen what I'm speaking about.
No, I don't remember that.
The flip by Ollie's car?
Are you talking about this flip in comparison to like the Ryan Newman flip at Daytona?
Oh yeah, the Ryan. Yeah, it looked eerily similar to Rusty Wallace as he barrel rolled down, but the initial flip kind of was like the car.
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, going over another car before barrel rolling down the backstretch.
I think they showed it on the Put It Out segment before the Cup race, the Rusty Wallace thing you were talking about.
Right. Yeah, he was transported to the hospital, but he was released later on. He is okay. I guess the biggest news of the weekend is Morgan Wallen went to Talladega and showed his ass, got all freaking drunk, and could not perform at his planned concert on Sunday in Oxford, Mississippi. Yes. He had quite a good time, such a good time at Talladega that he lost his voice and become ill and was not able to perform his concert.
They were saying on the radio, I heard this Monday morning, him and Hardy were at a concert. I guess Hardy was opening up for Morgan Wallen, and they had and I guess they were out partying or whatever, and then the day after that, Morgan Wallen had like no voice, I guess, and I guess they still played the concert up until Morgan Wallen's part, and when they got to his part, I guess the screens kind of changed and gave their like public address message saying, unfortunately, Morgan Wallen has no voice, so he will not be able to perform. Refunds will be handed out at the point of purchase. But yeah, it was a big deal. And I guess, I don't know if it's I didn't read the actual article, but I just saw a headline of it. I don't know if it's real or not. That I guess Morgan Wallen's being sued for having this instead of, canceling canceling everybody beforehand, just to save everybody the time and whatnot.
Yeah, I seen something that said now under a doctor's care, supposedly.
Yeah, Morgan has obviously got a drinking problem. He may need to get some professional help for that. But I'm no doctor, and I'm not trying to give out doctor advice. Maybe we need to read a disclaimer. Okay, so let's look at I just looked into driver points. Let's go back to, my goodness. Let's go back to.
You want to do Xfinity results there, Chris, while we got a few minutes?
Oh, yeah, I've got them pulled up if you do too.
Yeah, I do. So we got Justin Allgaier winning stage 1. Stage 2 went to Jeb Burton. And then your top 10 in the race was Jeb Burton, Sheldon Creed, Parker Kligerman, Cole Custer, Brennan Poole, Cesar Baccarella, Parker Retzlaff, Ray Goulding, Joey Gase, and Josh Williams. Notables outside of there, Brett Moffitt 12th, Brandon Jones 14th, Brian Truex 17th, Austin Hill 18th, Daniel Hemrick 21st, Ryan Sieg 22nd, Riley Herbst 23rd, Kaz Gralla 24th, Chandler Smith 25th, Derek Kraus 27th, Allgaier 28th, Sam Mayer 29th, Josh Berry 30th, John Hunter Nemechek, the Xfinity points leader, 32nd, Sammy Smith 33rd, and that's pretty much it for the notables. But I do want to point out one thing because, Chris, you mentioned ARCA, and I'm going to make a little bit of a joke here. The ARCA Menard Series points leader, well, we all know him from Malcolm in the Middle, but he ain't in the middle of this one because he's the points leader for the ARCA Menard Series, Frankie Muniz.
Yep.
Who would have thought?
Wow.
Malcolm in the lead instead of in the middle.
Right, Malcolm in the lead. Holy hell, that's hilarious. So let's go back real quick and look at that top 10. We've seen some interesting names there, Taz Taylor. Cesar Baccarella, of course, Parker Ratzliff. This kid was not just a beneficiary of all the other cars wrecking out, okay? Parker drove a hell of a race, and obviously teammate to Jeb Burton. I believe Parker did get sideways or wrecked at one point in time in the race, but he was able to recover and just drove right back to the front. He's a rookie. We're going to have to keep our eye on him. Also, Greg Gaulding. Greg come up at the same time as Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace, man. And he's always been a heck of a kid. I actually got to meet him at the Talladega Garage Experience on Friday, and he took his time and signed a lot of autographs and just really a cool kid. I call him the best dressed man in NASCAR because the guy really knows how to dress, man. I'm telling you, he is top notch when it comes to how to present himself in the public without the driver's suit. But also with the driver's suit on, he's just as friendly and talkative as anybody. Josh Williams come over and actually talked to us for a minute as well and signed a bunch of autographs. Yes, he is just as hilarious in person and off the tee as what he is with the microphone in front of his face. So he definitely kept the crowd laughing and just a cool guy. Joey Gase, a guy that's been around kind of funding his own stuff, does a lot of charity work that's not really talked about much. But just really cool to see some of these names finish up in the top slots. Of course, Parker Kligerman in the Big Machine. Big Machine Spiked Chevrolet with a third-place finish. And Brennan Poole in the sixth machine, the McDore Chevrolet. So that's, I believe they had 10 caution flags for 48 laps. Lead changes were 28 among 12 drivers. Parker Ratcliffe, Anthony Alfredo, Daniel Hemrick, Sheldon Creed, Chandler Smith, Justin Allgaier, Daniel Hemrick, Jeb Burton, Brett Moffitt, Ryan Sieg, who had a really good chance to win the race, and Ryan Truex, all were leaders of this race at some point in time throughout the race event. But it was the total race length was 121 laps. They went 21 miles over the original scheduled 300-mile event. So I think it was like three overtimes before they finally got it done. Any noteworthies or anything to talk about on the Xfinity Series side? I mean, it's still one of the most exciting series, I think, in Cup racing. I mean, in NASCAR racing.
One thing I wanted to point out is Jeb Burton. I did not mention his name for Stage 1 because usually I name the stage winners. But for Jeb Burton, yes, he won Stage 2. Yes, he won the race. And did he rightfully earn that? Heck yeah, he did. You know why? Because he finished fourth in Stage 1. The guy was up front in the entire race. So the guy that won the race rightfully deserved it. And I know people are saying that this could be his golden ticket to the playoffs and he'll be out of first round. But, hey, we might need to watch him in super speedway races because it seems like if he could put the race he did at Talladega into Daytona, and I believe they go back again to Talladega, the Xfinity Series does, Jeb Burton could be one to watch, especially when it comes playoff time.
And I think Jordan Anderson knows a little bit about super speedway racing. I do know that his father-in-law is none other than Larry McNugget. I don't know if there's any correlation between being really good at restrictor or super speedway racing and Larry Mack being the father-in-law. I don't really know, but Jordan Anderson's always been fast at this style racetrack, so it's no surprise that they built some fast-ass race cars. And really, I mean, this is what Jeb needed. I'm a big Jeb Burton fan. I've always been a Burton fan. As a matter of fact, I was willing to shave the 21 in my head if Harrison Burton could have finished in the top three. Y'all, he was leading the damn race. He was leading the damn race, and then he finished 36. Oh, poor kid. Poor kid. The Burton family. I mean, obviously Ward and Jeff paves the way kind of for these kids, but you still want to see them be successful. As we transition over to the Cup Series side, I think most of you guys that are here tonight, y'all watched the Cup race, correct?
Yep.
Sure did.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know what you guys think, but I've seen a heck of a race, and I've seen strategies. I've seen three wides. I've seen guys who are pushing a little too hard. The whole deal with not Noah Gregson. Yeah, Noah Gregson and Ross Chastain. Most of what I heard from everybody this week was that was just racing. When they tried to pin it on Ross Chastain, he had a lot of people take up for him. I wasn't quick to take up for Ross. I felt like that was kind of a dumbass move. And, you know, he ruined his day and Noah Gregson's day. So, I mean, it didn't really, you know, I don't know. I've taken up for Ross a lot, but at that point in time, I guess I see it different than everybody else there. I think everybody else just likes Ross Chastain so much that now they've gotten tired of calling him out for his crazy-ass moves. I mean, hey, you know, you put yourself in a situation, maybe you do the same move. I'm not sure, but I don't know what he was thinking. I mean,
I think I saw the same thing you did, Chris, because I thought he put his nose in where it didn't really belong. I think he could have waited like at least another corner when they at least got into like turn 3, or waited for a better opportunity to really take that move. But that was a bit of a stretch, at least from what I saw.
I think it was man versus equipment, Kaz, as you said. I think that he looked at the guy who was in front of him and said, this guy doesn't have a chance to win this race. I've got to take it now. And that's Ross Chastain's mental fortitude. That's what he is. That's who he is. He does what it takes to win. He's willing to make that move. He's willing to wreck that race car, and that's exactly what he did. He wrecked a race car, and he wrecked half the field. So nobody really wanted to pin it on Ross. I agree. When it's super speedway racing, I think these guys have learned to just chalk it up to super speedway racing because just about anything can happen, including turning the leader on the last lap to win a race. So, you know, you're not supposed to turn somebody into the wall at dangerous speeds of 190 miles an hour. But, hey, Austin Dillon did it, and he won a race for it. So, if you go back to the Eric Almirola, Eric, he won the Daytona 499.5 that year? Oh, Lord. We've got a little bit of talk about RCR later on, too. Kyle Busch, the number 8 car, back in victory lane at Talladega. The fans did not know what to do, y'all. First, they roared like hell when Bubba Wallace got wrecked. They started throwing beer cans and stuff onto the speedway. This is the most ridiculous thing I ever seen. I got really mad about it and called some people some racing pigs, and you just wouldn't believe it. I mean, I was just like, man, this is ridiculous. And then you throw in stuff onto the racetrack. That is even more ridiculous. And then, you know, Kyle Larson got wrecked, and, of course, everybody, and, you know, stuck their heads in it. And then when Kyle Busch won the race, there was like some fans just didn't know how to react to it. And, I mean, I see it as that number 8 car got back to victory lane at Talladega Super Speedway. Holy heck. Kyle Busch, who's been known to be a hell of a restrictor plate or super speedway racer himself. Sorry, they did a lot of restrictor plate racing talking this weekend. I've been over the fact of restrictor plate racing and been calling it super speedway racing, but unfortunately, bad habits are once again hard to break. So this, you know, Kyle Busch, a talented super speedway racer, was at the right place. I mean, you know, I think Jeb Burton was at the right time in the right place, even though, you know, he has stage wins to prove otherwise. That is what Talladega Super Speedway racing is. It is a crapshoot. Thoughts? Anything that stood out was kind of a snooze fest maybe for y'all? I want to know from the home seat what that race was like, because in the grandstands we had a completely different view.
I'll be honest, I half paid attention to most of the race. It probably wasn't till the last 20 laps or so that I put down the book I was reading and, you know, really, really paid attention.
And what stood out? What stood out with what you just said? Because we're going to talk about that in a little bit. What stood out was what you said. Was that an anticipated, or were you waiting on the action? You were silently waiting on the action. Explain to me what that means when you say that you were involved in a book. You were self-meditating as we led up to the finale of this event.
Yeah, and I know where you're going with this, and I have voiced my opinion on this on previous shows, but yeah, I knew it was going to be a long race. So, I sat back and I had the TV on and I had the volume on, and I would glance up from time to time, and, but I knew that the most exciting racing was going to come. It was in the last 20 laps. I've been a race fan long enough.
We'll get back to that thought right there, Taz.
What stood out for me was a lot of if you look at the pool picks we had this week, basically, I want to say about, if not all of them, maybe 90% of them, 90 to 95% of the picks that were made are strong super speedway racers. And if you look in the first two stages, and this is what I found interesting, was because of the pit strategy in this deal. But going back to the first two stages, your strong super speedway racers weren't necessarily running in the front by the end of the stages. And it could have, and I believe that is where pit strategy kind of came into play. I know they mentioned Brad Keselowski. Obviously, we know he's a strong super speedway racer, and he loves Talladega. I mean, you can't knock 6 wins at that track for nothing for him. But he sat back, and we all know he sat back for Chris Buescher because I believe he had like a speeding penalty or something like that on pit road, or something happened on pit road. I don't remember what the case was. And so Brad sat back to help his teammate, which is fine. And in a sense, too, I get he was helping a Ford, helping a teammate, but at the same time, it didn't look like a true Brad Keselowski. But when you really sit back and think about it, of how many super speedway wins he has, you sit there and think, well, he may have played the bold strategy, because Brad Keselowski, and I'm sure there's a number of other drivers too, like Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, just to name a couple more too. They showed up to Talladega playing chess instead of playing checkers. And I believe that's where some of these drivers that may have wrecked out kind of took the unfortunate of they played the short term instead of the long term. Like I said, we go back to the results here. Stage 1, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Ross Chastain, those are top 3. Noah Gragson was up there, Joey Logano, Ryan Preece, Daniel Suarez. Then you go back to Stage 2, Eric Almirola, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Bubba Wallace, Harrison Burton, a name you would never think of, was up there. Martin Truex Jr., a non-super speedway racer. Hamlin, Stenhouse. I mean, some of these guys think short term. But when you look at the long-term game, who prevailed? Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski with a top 5 finish, Eric Jones, and of course some of your back marker drivers, which is expected. Yep, William Byron was up there in the top 10. But it was like these guys, some of these guys that I named off are not super speedway racers, and I feel like they played the short-term game because of stage points, which, granted, it's okay that you want to grab, especially at super speedways. But at the same time, you got to play it out with some of these guys I named at the very end for the race, who played the long-term game. They weren't up there in the top 10 for the stages. Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski, the top 3 of our NASCAR picks. They did not finish in the top 10 of the stages. They sat and chilled out in the middle of the pack towards the back. And they played the game of chess instead of checkers, and they wanted the bigger prize versus the extra bonus points that could have propelled them. So I feel
and it worked.
And I feel like pit strategy really played a factor, especially late in the first 2 stages.
Well, it is obvious the 2 main contenders right now in the championship, I believe, William Byron and Christopher Bell, they both with 7th and 8th place finishes. Larson would have had a pretty good finish had he not got wrecked out. If it was a 5th, we'd all be drunk. Notable, Todd Gillian in a 10th spot. He was in the number 36 car because, remember, he got ejected from his ride for Zane Smith. Ultimately finished 37th in that ride. A little bit of yin and yang here. Kyle Busch finished first. Austin Dillon finished last. That is Talladega, right? The ups and the downs. Other notables, of course, Denny Hamlin had a great podcast this week. We got something to talk about there. Harvick ran pretty well. Was not able to show anything for it. Bubba Wallace, a great race, led a lot of the race. Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is learning, man. Like, I've been hearing some pretty, I've been a big Ty Gibbs criticizer, but I've been hearing that the kid's he's gathering a notebook and he's learning. Big deal for Brett Keselowski and the RFK team. Both of their drivers got top 10 finishes. Actually, top 5 finishes. So that is huge for RFK Racing. And Kyle Busch,
and I'm gonna, and Chris, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but you mentioned Ty Gibbs. If you remember last week, I mentioned with Ty Gibbs, I think he's starting to find his rhythm because, Chris, you asked where are the Toyotas. Well, they've been there, but there's been two of them that are kind of slacking, but one of them is a rookie, and I think he's starting to find his groove, and I believe it's starting to show. And if he can put together that groove a little bit better, I think we could see him competing for top 10s and top 5s easily week in, week out. Maybe wins. I think wins could be a stretch, but who knows. But
I can definitely see the Toyotas coming alive.
But Brad and Buescher, those are 2 names that sat around the 25th to 30th place running for 90% of that race, and they finished with top 5, as you mentioned. But
way to go, RFK!
As Miss Lee said, we got to get a little bit of a move on.
Yeah, 8 for 34 laps, 8 cautions for 34 laps. 57 lead changes among 21 drivers, and you wonder why they fill up the grandstand at Talladega Super Speedway. I mean, it's a no-brainer, guys. It's a no-brainer. So let's get off into the hot topic subject. First, we have a stat of the day, right?
Yes, we do, Chris, and I'm going to read it off, and you will be amazed. I don't know if you read it or not, but this is one heck of a stat. So write this down if you got pen and paper handy. So the last time the number 8 car won at Talladega was all the way back in October 3rd, 2004, which adds up to 18 years, 6 months, and 20 days. And the driver of the 8 car then, was Dale Jr. And prior to that last time the 8 car won at Talladega, Dale Jr. had won 4 races before that one. And those 4 Talladega races just so happened to be right in a row, which was fall 2001, fall 2002, and the spring 2003 race.
It was a hell of a run. That's how it became Junior Nation. The Sea of Red is what they would call it there back in the good day. All right, hot topics are open. First, before we do that, real quick, give off the ratings. I was expecting the ratings on this one, so it's really cool to hear. Let's give a ratings update real quick. Forbes got a 2.58 rating and a 4.554 million viewers for Sunday's race at Talladega. Almost flat from a reported 2.61 rating and 4.682 million viewers last year. NASCAR says there was a Nielsen revision that changed the 2022 viewership to 4.3. By that number, NASCAR was up Sunday. Adam Stern reported this. Okay. Stats are up for the viewership. Was it Talladega or was it Chase Elliott? We'll never know. All right. So first hot topic of the night, carnage at Talladega. Are we going too far? I mean, we had guys slip. We've had guys, hit the inside barrier, airlifted out of the speedway. This track ruined Eric McClure's career. It has almost taken the life of Stanley Smith, Bobby Allison. Of course, who can forget Carl Edwards being in the fence? Ryan Newman at Daytona, spectacular crash. We've seen this weekend with Ryan Preece and Kyle Larson. It's really a hot topic. I know this falls right into our opening monologue. I spoke then. I think it's y'all's turn to speak. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I continue to praise NASCAR and their safety innovations. I was intrigued by something that Ryan Preece talked about, and how after reviewing the tape, what were the things that he could do himself inside the cockpit to make himself safer, whether it's about tightening up his belts or placing his belts differently, more padding here or whatever. It's super speedway racing or restrictor plate racing as we know it. Racing is inherently dangerous, period. We know that. We understand that. The drivers should know that and understand that. And most of them do. I don't know what else we can do other than analyze each of these accidents and see what changes could be made, whether it's to the cars, to the safety equipment, because that roll bar failure on Larson's car freaked me out. But you know what? As long as we keep learning, hopefully we keep promoting the safety and advancing changes. But again, it goes back to inherently racing is a dangerous occupation.
And the good thing you mentioned that, because Chris sent us a little clip from Door Bumper Clear earlier today, and I will say this. I may not listen to full podcasts from Dirty Mo Media and stuff, but I do pay attention to their YouTube channel, and sometimes I'll catch clips of different people's podcasts, whether it's Door Bumper Clear, Denny Hamlin's podcast, or the Dale Jr. Download. There's an interesting title catcher, I guess you could say, that makes me want to view that small little clip. I'll view it, but unfortunately I didn't catch Door Bumper Clear, which thank you, Chris, for catching that part. And they mentioned that in sports, there's always going to be, we all know we're all taking a risk of some sort of danger in sports, right? And we got to give credit where credit's due in sports or motorsports, whatever it may be, that of the safety aspect and the long ways that we have come over the years. Unfortunately, when there are upgrades to the safety aspects, there's always these tough situation that happens, whether we lost a person or a major health concern happens. Like obviously 2001, we lost Dale Earnhardt. How do we improve on that? We looked into the problem, and they introduced the safety concern, and that was there. We go back to one of Ryan Newman's horrible flips. Yes, he survived, but we learned something from there, and they added what they call now a Ryan Newman bar. And then when Newman flipped at Daytona and had that horrible accident that sent him to the hospital and put him out for a few weeks, we learned something then, too.
The Newman bar saved his life. Bar saved his life.
And so we sit here and think of course, NASCAR's going to sit here, and they took both Larson and Priest's cars to the R&D center. Obviously, they're going to assess the wreck itself. They're going to assess the cars in terms of what failed, what worked, how can we improve. And we all know as athletes, too, as Miss Lee mentioned with Ryan Priest, what can he do better? Of course, athletes are going to sit here and think, what can they do better to help themselves? It's just a matter of everyone's just going to learn, and unfortunately, it has to take a hard hitting lesson, or a hard hitting situation, as I should word it better, to make us wake up and kind of say, all right, how this happened, this is how bad it was, what can we do to improve on it? And it's just, we all, like I said at the start, we all know, we all love the sport or the motorsports we sign up for, but we also know that when we do these sports or motorsports, that there is a risk of danger of some sort. And I mean, I'm going to use what Doorbell Clear said. Look at the NFL. I'm sure they were getting concussions left and right because of the helmets. What they do, they improve the helmets. I'm sure with the Damar Hamlin incident, I'm sure they looked at where did they hit him, where's the chest pads, how much help they do, and it just comes down to, unfortunately, tough situations that happen that makes us wake up and say, all right, what worked, what didn't work, how can we improve on what didn't work?
Unfortunately, Taz, they've labeled this car from the beginning unsafe, and we've had a couple of injuries that have transpired since the inception of this car. But I'm not willing to say that this car is unsafe. I'm willing to say that this car needed work to become safer, and you're always going to have that with any new design. We went from a basically a tube chassis car to a 3-link where you have a middle section, you have a front clip and a rear clip, and that's how this car is built. So you don't have you're going to put a lot of force in the middle of that car because that's where everything bolts up to. It's not a free folding car like it used to be, and so this car is bulky. It's heavy, but it's heavier than the other car, not in weight, but on how it's built, right? Force. And I think that as time goes on, NASCAR will get this figured out. We didn't have any drivers suffer any severe injuries at Talladega. We've yet to have in this car a driver get hurt at Talladega or Daytona. But that's where all the emphasis seems to be, that somebody's going to get hurt here. And you know, that somebody can get hurt at any racetrack, anywhere. That's just, unfortunately, part of the gig, as is in football. We watched with our own eyes a player grab his chest and fall onto the ground after a simple tackle. We didn't really know what was going on. And to this day, I'm not sure we still know what happened. You know, you have people who argue. And but it took that many football games before something like that happened. And that's because the game in itself is safe. The car is safe. We're not getting drivers killed every week. But does it not mean that we can continue to improve the safety of the car? For sure. That is for sure. Do people show up to the stands and to the infield at Talladega and Daytona because of the sense of danger? Of course they do. That's why these races are so important. Talladega and Carnage go together like a hand in a glove. It is what it is. But if you take Daytona and Talladega off the schedule of NASCAR, NASCAR wouldn't last 3 years, y'all. They wouldn't last 3 years. Turn one of these super speedway races into a road course. You would have a boycott from the fans. I don't know. Maybe some would disagree. They did take the first race of the season, which was the Busch Clash, known as the Busch Clash, and they took it and put it on a road course. And now they go to some arena in LA, in downtown LA, to do the race. So I mean, I guess NASCAR's already showed, hey, we can do what we want to do. But at the same time, I mean, the Daytona 500, NASCAR was built on the fact that track was built, right? I mean, we talk about moving from our grassroots. What is more grassroots than Daytona International Speedway? I'll leave that with you guys, please, Miss Lee.
You take away the Daytona 500, and you will have a revolt on your hands.
I could see the world's biggest riot going down.
Amen. So quit bitching, drivers. Quit your bitching. Drive a freaking race car. Say your prayers before you get in it. Dale Earnhardt didn't go home in 2001. But fortunate enough, we have not lost a driver in a race car. Take John Hunter Nemechek. John Nemechek has been the only driver since that has been killed in a race car. Of course, you know, Jerry Nadeau, very close. I mean, he was severely injured. Ruined his career. Ernie Irvan, his career come to a quick stop after another horrific wreck, I believe, at Michigan. Not Michigan. I forget where it was. But you know, I mean, it happens, and there are career-ending wrecks, and we've seen it before. Michael Annett, Eric McClure, several drivers that have gone. What was that? Oh goodness gracious! I hate it when I can't remember something on the radio show. Chris Fontaine. He was a hell of a speedway racer, and just got hurt too many times and had to step out. Brendan Gaughan, man, a perfect example of a guy who loves restrictor plate racing or super speedway racing. Most of the time, that's the only races he races. But he's retired now, so. It's an art and a craft. Anything else for the Talladega Carnage? Going once, going twice.
I'm good.
Bold.
All right. So NASCAR Network. Somebody brought it to the attention, of course, the WWE Network, the Golf Channel, NFL Sunday Ticket. All these things were mentioned, and somebody wanted to know, what about NASCAR Network? I'm not too fond of this idea. I don't like the idea of having to pay for racing. I already do kind of pay for racing with my Sirius XM. I guess my ad-free Spotify or something. I don't know. So I feel like we already pay for the sport. If I'm having to pay for the sport out of pocket, I'm probably less likely to be a loyalist to the sponsorships that are on these race cars. I try to buy my products that are labeled on race cars. I feel like that's my duty and my duty to help keep the relationship between the fan, the sponsor, and the driver alive. I do use products that are NASCAR sponsored. So
I
for
pay
a NASCAR
enough.
network, I'm not sure.
I pay enough for my streaming services. I'm not paying for an extra NASCAR network. NASCAR tried it once, and it was a flop.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on NASCAR creating a network?
I can understand in today's day and age if they were to go that route. I wouldn't be surprised. But I kind of feel like that they are heading in that direction slowly with the Pinty series, the Wheel and Modified Tour, the ARCA series, all being streamed through Flow Racing. Like Lee said, they had it at one point through DirecTV, and it wasn't really a giant hit. But I think it wasn't a giant hit at that time because the main network systems weren't the big hit at that time. I don't think they were anyways. Maybe in today's day and age they might be that way. But I think NASCAR really needs to dissect if they were to really incorporate a network. They really need to dissect into numbers of viewerships.
The fans will not stand for it. The fans already bitch about, quarter for the swear jar, sorry, about how many races are on cable networks and obscure cable networks. Mm-hmm. Now, if they were to take and put every single race on their own network, people might spring for that. But not if you're going to have it on their network and a few races on regular TV and a few races on obscure cable networks. No. So they got to shit or get off the pot. Another quarter, sorry. And what model's going to work for them? And it's either you go all in or you scrap it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any in between.
That's exactly where I was thinking. It's because they would have to go all in with it. It can't be like with DirecTV in the sense of where, you have the race on the main broadcast, but if you sign up for the network, you can watch like 12 different cars going around the track at once, and it kind of took away from the main broadcast. But I feel like if NASCAR had their own network, you would have to go all in with it, which means all of your races need to be broadcast through it. Race replays, we need to go off of YouTube and go to that network, essentially. And they would have to do it for not only the Cup Series, but they would have to do it for Xfinity trucks. And, of course, ARCA, the Wheel and Modified Tour, Pinty's. I guess you might as well throw in the Euro and Mexico series in there too, because they're part of NASCAR.
Right. And that's where I could see it being a positive, because that would expose those series, Pinty's and Euro, Wheel and Mods, et cetera, to a wider audience. So I could see that being a plus.
Yeah, I would like to see telemetry. If I was having to pay $4.99, or if I chose to pay $5.99, $12.99, $120 a year for a subscription to NASCAR, these are the things that I would require to be able to see. All data that the crew chiefs and teams are able to look at, telemetry, all from the radio communications to the in-car cameras. I would want complete control. Second, I would want to make sure that SiriusXM NASCAR Radio was now a partnership of this network, and you could be able to access that type of material there. I would want to all access behind the scenes to pre-race, everything from car garage, interviews to unlimited amounts of coverage from practice, just basically the entire weekend, 24/7. 8 hours of replay, 10 hours of live events coming out of this
race inspections.
I'm talking the 9 yards. If it's going on at the facility, I want to be able to know about it. That is the only way you sell me on that type of thing, because I can already get. And look, you don't take it off the network. You don't take it away from Fox. You don't take it away from ESPN, who's not in it right now. You don't take it away from the NBC. You allow it to stay there. I'm buying the extra. I am paying for the extra stuff. And that extra stuff is already there. And when I buy the stuff like the telemetry and all that other things, that in itself will fund the broadcast to be able to be expanded into a lot more different things, from garage cam to post and pre-race.
But Chris, your average fan, we're rabid fans, okay? So we want all that extra stuff. And maybe we could find a way to pay for it. But access to the races is what's important. And like I said, you're all in or you're all out. You're either going to have it on the national networks on free TV for fans to watch, or you're going to have it all on your own network.
Was Talladega on free TV? Was it on, or was it on Fox Sports 1?
No, it was on the main Fox.
The Cup race was on Fox. The Xfinity race was on FS1.
That sucks. I don't know how they can choose which one is better for which network. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, and you know what? And you want to talk about this, look at NBC. When the Olympics were on, where the heck did NASCAR go? It got stuck on CNBC, USA, how many other networks that most fans, I won't say most fans, a lot of fans don't have access to. So what does that do for your morale as a fan? I want to watch the race, but I don't have that network. I'm paying for things right now that I can't necessarily afford, just so I can watch all the races. That is the issue. You've got champagne fans that can afford to pay for all of that stuff. But your average fan can't afford it. So tell me who you're trying to appeal to as you're trying to build your fan base, and you're still going to try to make it exclusive.
Yeah. So Greg said that he was trying to get into the studio, and I look over and I don't see him in the studio. I know he's listening to the show here, so at me, bro, at me. I'm not always in the group thread. I'm running other things while we are doing the discussion here. I'm with and Craig said that he's with what I say. If he's going to pay for something, he wants all access, including hearings and appeals, panel hearing. Look, I'm down for that. I know NASCAR owns a lot of these podcasts. There was a certain situation where Corey LaJoie admitted on his podcast this week that he wrecked somebody intentionally and wound up wrecking himself or whatever, but NASCAR did not penalize him. And so Denny Hamlin's sitting there with his hands up in there wondering how in the hell Corey LaJoie can admit on a podcast that's owned by NASCAR that he wrecked somebody on purpose and not get penalized. But yet Denny Hamlin, who is a Dirty Mo client, does get penalized for it. So that's definitely a question worth asking. And if you know, at what point in time does NASCAR, Dirty Mo Racing, Dirty Mo Network, wow. You can't describe anything in the media of NASCAR anymore without going through what somehow something that Dirty Mo Media is putting out. Go Dale Jr., man. You really you have played the friend and the rival of NASCAR, and you just keep doing what you're doing, big guy. I know I was very critical of him at first when he stepped out of the vehicle because I was like, hey, man, I'm a fan of his. And now he's retired, and I'm still lost because I don't have a driver. But yet I'm seeing this guy in the news every day, and he's always at the track. And it's like I just don't ever have time to really retire you. But over the years, and the Dirty Mo Media has turned into something, you know, beyond Dale Jr. He's the craft. He's the main craft behind it. But definitely, I think I would rather subscribe to Dirty Mo than I would NASCAR. And if you believe in that, give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. Hell yeah. All right. Still no Craig Moore. So if you were listening, you would know that you were invited to call back in and join the group. Maybe somebody can tell them on Facebook. But so let's go to the next topic, and I think that this one's a pretty good topic as well. We're running kind of short on time. Star power problem. It has been brought to the attention that we may have lost a lot of stars too fast. The superstars of the sport, and when I'm talking superstars, I'm talking about the world-famous stars. The stars like Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Jimmy Johnson. That star power is not where it used to be. And you have the Candyman who's no longer in the Candyman car. So is NASCAR suffering a certain star power problem? And is there a quick fix to this? Obviously, there's a conspiracy that Chase Elliott was out and ratings fell in NASCAR. He's back, and now all of a sudden ratings are up. I don't know. But is there a certain star power problem in NASCAR? I'll start with you, Tess Taylor.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned this because your favorite podcast, Chris, Door Bumper Clear, covered this problem. I saw the clip of them talking about it on the Dirty Mo Media YouTube page. There's definitely a superstar lack of superstar power in NASCAR. I mean, you look at, and that could come down to personalities. But we all try to figure out of how is Chase Elliott this big old superstar when, I mean, the guy, no offense to Chase Elliott fans, but the guy's just kind of bland. I mean, Kyle Busch has more personality. And
Chase is not his father.
No, by any stretch of the means. I mean, you go back into the 2000s and early 2010s. You had guys to name off like Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Ryan Newman, Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon. These guys had personalities. I mean, they had their own personalities that shined and stuck out. And now you're in this age of where you have guys that have the names, but it's like, where's their star power? What makes them them? And
not to mention, none of them can throw a punch.
Yeah. So So you sit here and think of the lack of superstars. I think the superstar power is lack of personality in these drivers. And the last of those drivers that have personalities are starting to fade away. Kevin Harvick, after this year, will be in the Fox broadcast booth. There's a personality we lost there. Kyle Busch in a few years, we're going to lose him. We've already lost Kurt Busch in that sense. Tony Stewart, NASCAR lost him pretty much to the Fox booth. Clint Boyer was another personality. Clint Boyer was another personality. We're losing personalities left and right.
And we're replacing them with Kyle Larson, and who definitely does not like the media. Obviously, he has proven that over the last year for sure. And William Byron, who gives us the most bland damn post-race interviews in the world. Like, I mean, the guy really. I like Willie B, but he has no personality at all.
Snowflakes.
The guy who everybody should be a fan of, the winningest driver in NASCAR, still able to get it done. The villain of the sport. And yet, is he a world? If you were to drop him off, in any country, would they know who he is? Because that's what a superstar is.
Maybe, because he's been the villain for so long. But I don't see any villains so much in this new crop of drivers, except maybe Chastain.
I was just gonna say, I think Chastain's got the most personality of the real current drivers of
right
what's coming through now.
Does a personality lead to villain? Does a personality get you vilified in the sport?
Well,
I believe it does in a way.
In this day and age, yeah. But I don't know.
I would say personality doesn't always have to lead to being a villain. I just feel like personality just leads to more superstar power. I mean, shoot, I don't think Jeff Gordon was really a villain per se, but he had a personality and ended up being a superstar, or at least had the star power.
Hey, if you were a Dale Earnhardt fan, you hated Jeff Gordon. He was the villain.
Right, but you have to love somebody enough to hate their rival,
Right.
And I personally don't, quote unquote, love any driver in the field right now enough to hate their rival.
Right.
I am a Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson fan. I'm not hooked on big fans of them as I was a Jimmy Johnson fan. And I know Jimmy Johnson, not much for personality there, but with Larson and Bowman, there's nothing there. And they don't really have rivals, so it's not like I can sit here and say, oh, I hate these drivers because they're rivals of these guys. It's I hated Kyle Busch just for the cocky villain that he was. But
As I
got older, I sit here and I'm like, I hate him, but as I've gotten older, it's I don't really hate him. Like, he's a personality. Like, he's not my favorite driver, but, like, he's got personality. Like, we need more of that. And we don't have it. Hamlin's kind of the same way, too.
I haven't been a NASCAR fan as long as y'all think I have. I chose Joey Logano as my driver his rookie year because that was my first year as a true NASCAR fan.
Really?
And I've always been a Joey supporter, but when Kyle Larson came in, I was like all in because I watched Kyle Larson move up through the series. And now I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm a Kyle Larson fan so much anymore. He's so freaking wishy-washy. I supported him when he went through all his crap. And now anymore, it's like, you know what? I don't like him personally.
Right.
So I'm back on the Joey train big time because I've watched Joey mature as a driver and as a person.
Larson's even lucky as a promoter. I mean, I saw his interview after his first point-paying sprint car race that he was promoter for. And the interviewer was sitting there talking through Flow Racing, and the interviewer was sitting there talking to him, asking him questions of certain incidents or certain rules of his series that happened and how drivers reacted to it. And he was like, yeah, there was this, but like these drivers said this, but also, you know, these drivers said that. So we have to sit here and kind of look at both sides. And I'm like, dude, you're the promoter of a series. Come on. Push for that personality.
Well, sell us the reason to follow your series. You know, I feel like maybe we're seeing why Kyle Larson got in the situation that he got put in, and it's just bad judgment, not understanding his surroundings, not understanding what he needs to be other than just a race car driver. I was a big proponent on getting Kyle Larson into a championship caliber car. Like, I begged for him to be at Stewart-Haas. But some people just don't know how to handle the stardom. Some people don't know, and maybe he feels the media crossed him, and so he doesn't open back up to the media like he did before. But I don't know if the kid ever really had a personality. I know he was a hell of a race car driver, but once he's dipped into this stardom side of his career, he's really been a turnoff for me, really. I mean, everything from saying that he wasn't going to be in the Chili Bowl because they didn't pay enough to jumping in Al Gear's modified, last week or so and putting a waxing on the field. I mean, what's the difference in a Chili Bowl and a modified paying $1,000 to win? So, you know, it's been hypocritical from the start for him.
And in contrast, look at Joey. Joey was kind of quiet his first year, but he got into some major spats later. You know, the one with Kevin Harvick is obviously the biggest. But, you know, he's finally learned to stand up for himself. And
they were after Joey in the beginning.
Exactly.
The whole name sliced bread come at a price.
Didn't you get into it with Kenseth at one point?
The whole nickname. Yeah. Heck yeah. Joey's got to fight it out, man.
But take him as an example and look at how he has matured. And he's still a scrapper on the racetrack, but he's not so hot-tempered. He's not getting into fights and stuff anymore. And I think he does a very good job in the broadcast booth as well. So he's grooming himself a path. But, yeah, you know, all the silver spoon accusations that were thrown at him, he took it and he's run with it, and he's grown and matured, and I'm actually very proud of him.
I know people think I'm out of line for this. Joey Logano is the modern day Davey Allison. He is great behind the camera. He'll smile and give you all the right shots that you want. But the moment he gets in that race car, it's all business. Same way Davey Allison was.
Amen.
All right. Let's get to this last topic real quick because we're running a tad bit behind. Oh, okay. Phew. That's 10 minutes fast. We're actually right on time. No, we are running a little bit behind. Sorry. Okay. Oh, I remember now. Are late cautions the key to entertainment in NASCAR? Ms. Lee brought up a very interesting point. We've already talked about this, so this subject should go on fairly quickly. But it is worth talking about. We find that a lot of the race has been snooze fest. Some people blame it on stage racing. Some people blame it on this. Some people blame it on that. But is it necessarily an issue that the race becomes more exciting with 20 laps to go? Isn't a ball game more exciting in the 7th and 8th, maybe the 9th inning than it is in the 1st inning? Isn't a football game a close football game? Rivals? Isn't it better in the 4th quarter than it is in the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 1st? This isn't too far off the rails from other sports, but it's worth covering. Let's leave. I know you're fighting at the bit to get onto this one. Are late cautions the key to entertainment?
Yeah, no, we have talked about this on prior shows, and take my example talking about my watching Talladega. I was reading. I was watching the race, but I was reading at the same time because I knew that I could keep the race in the corner of my eye and catch anything serious that happened, you know, whether it be lead changes, wrecks, whatever. But I knew that the most important racing was the last 20 laps. Well, so do most of your NASCAR fans know that. So, you know, are they watching the entire race, or are they turning in just for the last 20 laps? So how?
I think it's. I think.
Go ahead.
I think when you have a 4.5-hour race or 4-hour race, I don't expect anybody to sit there glued to the TV and watching it all. That's the greatest thing about NASCAR is you can put it on TV and you can go about your business and never miss a beat. And it's kind of the same way with any sport. Sure, you have your true fanatics in certain races or certain ball games where you're going to sit there and you're going to watch the whole thing. But for the most part, 90% of the season goes by and you are literally doing something else while the ball game was on. Whether you were cooking, whether you were cleaning, whether you were playing with the kids, whatever it may be. You might have stuck the TV out on the front porch and so-called watched the race while you were grilling burgers. But you were grilling burgers. You weren't really watching the race until need be. It's the same way as a kid watching baseball. Me and my papa would sit there and talk until the announcer would say, and there it is, a line drive to left field. And all of a sudden, whatever we were talking about, it was no more. Our eyes were glued on the television.
Okay. And I can't disagree with that. But what does any sport, I'm not just going to put this on NASCAR, what does any sport need to do to generate more interest in their production from beginning to end? And as NASCAR is trying to draw in new fans and a new fan base, what does NASCAR do to keep them interested through the entire race. Because we know the old fan base is going to watch the whole thing. How does NASCAR keep a new fan base interested all the way through the race rather than just turning in to the last 20 laps?
That's interesting. That is an interesting question. And you have to make each individual race as important as the next one. And in order to do that, I think we've zoned in on one championship or a real season champion, a season champion, and then a chase champion. Well, I floated around this idea for years. Why don't we go to 7 road courses. Why don't we have a road course champion? Why don't we have a road course standing?
Oh my God,
Why don't we
Chris.
have a short track standing? Why don't we have super speedway standing? We need champions.
I knew exactly where you were going with that because I'm going to throw in a series that does not get talked about often. That at least they used to do this. The main ARCA series, they used to have a short track challenge where they had a season long champion to crown, but because they mostly raced at short track, they did a short track challenge championship. So basically, guys who weren't running the full ARCA series schedule
because they couldn't qualify for the super speedways. That's where that came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were kids that couldn't qualify for the super speedway races when they would follow the NASCAR circuit, which was Daytona and Talladega. Remember, there is not an age restriction in ARCA. ARCA was only recently purchased by NASCAR. NASCAR instituted a rule that you had to be 18 years of age back a long time ago because of a certain kid called Kyle Busch, who basically was, and then had that ride stripped out from underneath him because NASCAR did not want anybody under the age of 18 in the NASCAR series. So, it basically set. Kyle Busch would have come in as a rookie probably a year after his brother had everything gone as what they wanted to. But Kyle also lied about his age through most of his career, and was actually further off from Kurt's age than what they said. Of course, you don't show up to a racetrack showing your birth certificate, so it was really easy to lie. But eventually, everybody found out Kyle Busch was only 16 years old, and that's when NASCAR came in and said, "Oh, no, VW, no." And ARCA never adopted that rule. So you can be as young as what you can buy a car from, I believe, in the ARCA series. Now, they are owned by NASCAR, so there may be more restrictions. But great point, Miss Lee. There was a time where ARCA drivers were not allowed. Certain ARCA drivers were not ready for super speedway racing, and they were not granted that race. So definitely I wanted to say there. And, of course, Denny Hamlin, the $1 million idea. It's not far-fetched from that. A mid-season tournament is what he was speaking about, and a bracket-style racing where they're competing amongst each other. All these things are what would keep the fans interested. And also, the federal government, let's open the gates on the gambling stuff. States need to open it up. Because if all of us had access to gambling, or at least what, you can watch, I mean, even if you don't gamble on, being able to look at the stats from FanDuel and stuff, I mean, that's just more content that a viewer can be a part of. And, I think all of that is very important to the future of NASCAR racing. Anything else really on that?
I like the fact, and I don't like Denny Hamlin. I'm going to preface with that. But I like the fact that rather than sitting back and complaining like everybody else, Denny is thinking outside the box about ideas of what NASCAR can do. So I give him credit for that. That said, Chris, you're talking about gambling and you're looking at, government regulation getting into the sport and all that. And, that's a topic for another day. But I like the fact that Denny is at least presenting ideas, whereas all the other drivers are sitting back and complaining.
Amen.
I like his,
Amen. And
I've
never been a Denny Hamlin fan either, but no, I like his podcast. What's that?
I like his thinking of this because I'm going to throw this in. I wonder if he pays attention to Nitro Rallycross. And I mentioned that because Nitro Rallycross, their qualifying format, their qualifying format is battle brackets. So essentially, you run, say, a 5-minute practice, and your fastest lap is basically your seed. So the fastest in practice is your number 1 seed, and your slowest guy in practice is your lowest seed, basically. And they go by bracket format. And, of course, whoever wins the bracket challenge is the top qualifier. And, of course, you get bonus points. You get 1 point for each battle win you get. And I think what Denny's doing is basically saying you're adding drama, you're adding points into this because you're taking top 32, equal playing field because it's one-on-one. And you can have upsets, you have storylines, you can have heated rivalries, and that could lead into that superstar power. Denny's got this battle bracket deal that can boom big time, and not in terms of storylines, but maybe build the rivalries, build the superstar power that we're missing.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen.
I give him a checker flag for that one, since that was a black flag, checker flag topic.
Yeah, yep. And that's something that we're rolling right into. We're a few minutes behind. We'll have to catch up here in black flag, checker flag as we try to stroll through this and get to the Tasmanian Dover hot pick. All right, NASCAR changes results hours after race. Not really sure, why it took so long to make these changes if something was presented later on to NASCAR. But they talk about race manipulation. Is this not kind of the kettle calling the pot black?
I don't know why they had to go do that. That was, I know that cars were in carnage and all over the place, but still, to go and change things, if I'm not mistaken, it didn't radically affect point standings or anything, but, come on.
I want the original finish and I want to see if at the end of this chase somebody doesn't miss it by 1 point and it's because of this race. That's how important these points are. NASCAR, you cannot be changing this later on. Taz Taylor, what's your opinion?
My thing is,
flag or black flag?
I see it as a black flag, and my thing is, why do we have live electronic timing and scoring if we're going to review the tapes later on for it? Shoot, you look at dirt tracks, when a yellow gets thrown out, they go back to the last completed lap because that's the last live timing and scoring update they got. NASCAR is live timing and scoring every little millisecond you got. So why is it that they have a finish by the end of the broadcast and then hours later, because of this, didn't you have live timing and scoring to begin with anyways? So why
they claim
are we going
that
backwards?
They claim that the field is frozen at the time of the caution. But that is not the truth, because that's not the whole rule. You have to maintain race speed to the start-finish line on the last lap. If you don't, then you will lose credit of your position. So you have to maintain caution speed to the checkered flag. So technically, we are under caution racing back to the checkered flag. Under caution speed, not full speed. If you do it full speed, I have a feeling that there's going to be penalties. But that's where it all gets confusing, because you originally said that the field is frozen and the field's not frozen. If you have to continue rolling to the checker flag in order to receive that position that was frozen at the time of the caution, then technically it ain't frozen. Correct? Who's confused? Raise your hand. I can't see y'all, but I hope your hands are raised.
I get what NASCAR is trying to go for. Like, as soon as the yellow's thrown out, basically field is frozen at that point. But, again, if we have live timing and scoring for a legit reason, why is it taking us hours to figure out what the real finish is? I mean, dirt track racing, like I mentioned, dirt track racing, we have live timing and scoring for a reason. When a yellow gets thrown out, we go back to the last completed lap, wherever the order was at that time. That's the order you're going to restart in. Why can we not figure that out?
Yeah. Why doesn't NASCAR run those same rules? We've talked about this before. The only way we have a yellow and a checker together is if we are letting the guy coming to the checker flag know that there is a caution on the speedway. So literally that yellow flag, if that yellow flag comes out in turn 2, we're re-racking them and stacking them. Maybe single file, but we're still re-racking them. Okay? But if that car spins out at the flag stand or in turn 1, and the leaders have already made it around to 3 and 4, then we're going to set out the caution flag with the checkered flag. That way it's the end of the race. We're letting the driver know that he needs to watch out for something as he's in his cool down lap. So I don't really know. Any other time you revert back and you finish your lap, because we go back to the last completed lap. And so I don't know if car has to make up rules as they go, but there you go. There is no real true consistency in how they make those types of calls. And I think that's why it's probably considered entertainment instead of an actual sporting event. Denny Hamlin's $1 million idea. Black flag,
I think we already hit that
flag. One. Yeah, we did. So I think we give a checkered flag, right? I think all of us give a checkered flag to Denny Hamlin's $1 million idea. Anything that can keep the fan engaged is cool. Number 3, SRX announces broadcast booth. Taz Taylor, I know you want to say who these guys are, and I am ready, man. I think one of them's name is DW.
Yeah, so SRX announced their broadcast team this year, and let me tell you, this is the biggest checker flag I've seen on their broadcast team, and they're now going in season 3 that they've had in season history. Their lead broadcaster, their play-by-play guy, is Alan Bestwick, so he returns for another year, for year 3. Lead pit reporter, again returning for year 3, Matt Yoakum, A+ on those 2. Now, they're 3 driver analysts. They're split up into different races. A+ for all 3, because there's not one in there that I think would make me turn off the channel or make me take a nap. With that being said, Joey Logano at Stafford, Berlin, and Eldora, he'll be the driver analyst with Alan Bestwick. At Thunder Road, it'll be DW, Darrell Waltrip. And for Motor Mile and Lucas Oil, we'll see Connor Daly come back for SRX. And like I said, I think SRX really nailed the broadcast team this year. I know we talked about it earlier of the value of DW versus past broadcasters that the SRX has had. Now, DW has value in his own right. Does he know these SRX cars? He might. He may not. Will he get behind the wheel of one to get a better view of the broadcast? I don't entirely know if he will, but honestly, he brings more value than Danica Patrick and Willie T. Ribbs combined that the SRX has had the last couple of years.
And
you know
Paul
who I'm
Tracy.
going to miss?
No doubt.
They need to add Hinch to this.
I agree with you.
I
yeah,
love him
double
as
checker
a
flag.
commentator.
Double checker flags going to the SRX announcement for the broadcast booth. AI takes the top of the pit box, number 4. This has been verified. As a matter of fact, Austin Dillon won the race at Charlotte because of this program. It has been in use for several years now, but it's gotten a lot more popular. Miss Lee, I think you know a little bit more about it. Can you give us a quick rundown of what this means?
Well, I don't know a whole lot more about this. I had a Twitter friend who presented the race scenario to Chat GPT for Kyle Busch winning the race. And it ended up predicting exactly what Kyle Busch did, was staying out and not stopping for gas. And I presented that to the group, and I told y'all it was a fan that did that. But she was the one that brought up the fact that RCR had admitted at one point to using AI to help their decision, and that was the Austin Dillon thing. So
this is the big Andy Petrie thing right here, right? We knew that Andy Petrie brought something to RCR because RCR was in the freaking dump before Andy Petrie got promoted to race, until he got brought over to be race director of competition. And obviously Petrie had studied this program or was willing to take a chance on it, and the two have worked itself out great, because RCR is headed back in the right direction. They had 3 wins last year. Of course, they got better caliber drivers. Tyler Reddick, of course, Kyle Busch. Austin Dillon is Austin Dillon, right? I mean, he's going to luck in and win them a few, especially if RCR is providing great equipment. But he's not the superstar caliber of a driver like Tyler Reddick and Kyle Busch. Are we surprised that AI is being integrated into NASCAR? I'm not surprised at all. I welcome it. I mean, I give it a checker flag. I could see where some people might give it a black flag, though, because if everybody's running AI and everybody's getting the same conclusion, then obviously we'll have something else to complain about. So I do see the negative, but right now I give it a checker flag. I know a certain crew chief, or a former crew chief and car owner, thought outside the box and brought something to the table here, and it's worked really well for RCR, and it's helped get things turned around. Taz, what's your comments on it? Checker flag, black flag?
I'm going to give it I guess I'll say a checker flag for right now. I feel like the true negatives might come out if more teams use it.
I'm calling black flag. You cannot disregard the human element.
I mean, that's said well in itself. You cannot disregard the human element. Because okay, they made a movie about that, right? The Hudson, the guy from what's his name? The Hudson River guy, right? Like the simulation over and over again. They could not complete the maneuver that Sully did, right? Y'all ever seen the movie?
Absolutely.
The Tom Hanks movie about So they tried to simulate it, and they couldn't get it done. And it comes down to the human element. He was able to do it because he's human, and because he was able to pull it off. I mean, it's I guess similar to Cole Trickle when he took it to the outside on those cheated up tires that his crew chief told him he had. Who knows? It was meant to be. All right, is RCR bidding for championship number 7? We all wondered how long it would take to get Kyle Busch in victory lane. He's now visited victory lane twice, and we're not even midway through the season. Is RCR bidding for their 7th championship? That's a question. I know it's a black flag, checker flag, but is it a legitimate question? That is the question. Is this a legitimate question? Is RCR capable of winning a championship?
If they put everything they have behind Kyle Busch, then yes. Is Pop willing to sacrifice his grandsons to put everything he has behind Kyle? Then absolutely. And are his grandsons going to regret pushing Pop to take Kyle Busch?
No. As a future, Austin Dillon is the future of RCR. That was the first time that Austin Dillon showed that he was capable of running that company in the future, because he was willing to set himself aside for the betterment of the company, and that is what a boss does. That's what future leaders do. He's a future leader of that company, and I believe that. And that move right there was a boss of a move as you can make, because you had to put your dignity, your pride aside. You had to say, hey, this could be the future of our company. I am in the number 3 car, but that guy wins races. We need that guy in our shop, Pop. I give him a checker flag.
But did Austin give that race to Kyle on orders from Pop?
I don't know. That's a good question. You're talking about the previous win, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. I think if it had come down to it, I would want to beat the guy who I thought was better than me from the door. If Patrick Swayze walked in the door, I know I'm only a second best looking Patrick Swayze. He's the first best looking. So if my wife loves me because I look like Patrick Swayze, then she's probably going to love Patrick Swayze a little bit more than me, right? So I think if given the chance to compete against that, I would definitely want to show him up and want to show that I am the better man, right? I am the better looking Patrick Swayze here. And I feel like maybe that's the same thing Austin Dillon would do, given the right opportunity to race Kyle like that.
He might be her one-off, but you're her number 1. Come on.
That's for sure. All right. Well, let's get into, we're 2 minutes behind schedule. 4 minutes behind schedule, sorry. Not bad because we started off kind of slow. Let's get into the Tasmanian Dover hot picks, guys. Taz, Taylor, you take it off from here, man. Let's get it.
All right, so hot picks for the Monster Mile of Dover. I've listed off Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Martin Truex Jr. as the favorites. Denny Hamlin, Alex Bowman, Joey Logano as contenders. A.J. Allmendinger, Chris Buescher, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as underdogs. Of course, we need to put in 2 to 3 more names for each category. And with that being said, the panel is open for names. So whatever names you throw out in whatever category you feel like putting in there, spill the beans.
Okay. Where do we put Chastain?
Chris is feeling Byron as a favorite, Ross as a contender. William Byron at Dover. I'm trying to pull up his stats right here. William Byron, in 8 starts at Dover, has no wins, but has 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s, has led 28 laps with an average finish of 14.0.
Not a very good stat.
So I could knock him down as a contender at this point, I would feel like. As for
Two
Ross,
hottest race car drivers in NASCAR.
I feel like
I have to go back to the top 3.
Ross Chastain, we could put in the contender part, being at Dover, has the same 8 starts as William Byron, only has 1 top 5 and 1 top 10 finish, but he has led more laps, which is 86, but his average finish at that track is a 25.3. So I could see William Byron go nothing lower than a contender if we don't put him as a favorite, and I could definitely see Chastain as a contender at this point.
All right, we'll put them both in a contender. We're still looking for a favorite because there is a name that is missing on here, and I believe his name is Christopher Bell.
Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell at Dover. 4 starts, 0 wins, 1 top 5, 1 top 10. Has not led a lap at Dover, but has an average finish of 18.5, which is closely, relatively behind the contender I have listed, Alex Bowman, who has 1 win, 5 top 5s, and 5 top 10s, with an average finish of 17.8.
All right. 2 elephants in the room.
You got it.
Both looking at retiring, Harvick and Truex.
We've got Truex as a favorite.
Who's the defending winner?
I could see Harvick as a favorite. Same amount of wins as Martin Truex Jr. He may have 10 more starts than Truex, but he does have 10 top 5s and 23 top 10s and 42 starts, has led 1,666 laps, and has an average finish of 12.9. So I could see him as a favorite here.
Where do we put Mi Amigo?
I don't know because I'm not too big on him at this racetrack.
Right.
Suarez, actually, we can put him as a contender or an underdog.
What?
And here's why. I'm going to throw in Brad Keselowski because that's not a name we have not mentioned yet. Keselowski has 1 win, 5 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and 24 starts. Has led 403 laps with an average finish of 13.1. Daniel Suarez, 10 starts, 1 top 5, 5 top 10, 22 laps led, average finish 13.3.
Wow, not bad.
So if we don't put him as a contender, I definitely want him as an underdog. And another underdog I want to throw in there is Ty Gibbs.
You know, Gibbs has been interesting. Now that he's in premium equipment and has obviously matured, he is a serious contender for the season. I had my doubts about him, but I really think he's proving himself.
One favorite I want to throw in, and I'm surprised we haven't mentioned his name, is this past weekend's winner, Kyle Busch. He's got 3 wins at Dover. His average
they were
finish
looking forward to it, too.
Kyle Busch has an average finish of 14.0, has led over 1,000 laps. 21 top 10s and 34 starts. I don't see why we couldn't put him as a favorite in there.
At the end of the race, the post-race interview, Kyle Busch stated the fact that they had circled Dover on their calendar. So that's a really good one there. We hear this a lot. I guess certain race teams feel like their strong points are certain races, and we've seen SHR circle the calendar at New Hampshire several times. They've got something figured out there. I believe RCR has something figured out here at Dover, and that's why this one is circled. So Kyle Busch, I would definitely vote to be a favorite here at Dover.
I agree, because you can never rule out Kyle Busch.
All right. What about Tyler Reddick, guys, and Eric Amarola? Those two names are just they're there. And Eric Amarola does really well at these style racetracks. He's been in contention to win several different times. But also Tyler Reddick. Like, we're waiting on Tyler Reddick to break out. Of course, he won a couple weeks ago and got him that win with 23-11. But he's not necessarily broke out yet. He's not, been one to talk about so much. So definitely Tyler Reddick and Eric Amarola are ones that I am interested to watch this weekend to find out where they land. But definitely interesting to find out where you would place those two drivers on your chart. 3 minutes.
Amarola, underdog, Reddick, maybe a contender.
I think I'd put them both underdogs. Amarola's shown more strength at longer tracks.
I guess, Chris, you're the deciding factor.
What's the A's stats? I think you'll be surprised.
AA battery, 19 starts, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, with an average finish of 17.1, leading 86 laps. Reddick, on the other hand, 4 starts, only 1 top 10, has not led a lap, but has an average finish of 17.3.
And what was Amarola's? He had pretty good stats, didn't he?
Amarola was 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and 19 starts. Has led 86 laps and 17.1 average finish, which is relatively close to Reddick.
Who is the favorites? What has Vegas said about the favorites here? Will we go to Vegas and look at those odds? They come out Vegas Insiders and stuff. And we only got a few seconds here, so let's check it out real quick. There. Have we got it close to finishing up?
I mean, we pretty much got a good list here.
Okay. Yeah, all right. The betting odds are not out yet, so that's unfortunate. I don't know what happened. They used to come out on Tuesday. Now I think it's basically Wednesday. Kyle Larson is still the favorite to win the championship. Chase Elliott, William Byron, and Kyle Busch, your top 4 for the championship. Isn't that crazy? Chase Elliott's missed 6 races and still a favorite to win a championship. So, all right. Well, that's the list, and if we need to improvise or anything like that, we'll have to do that later on. Taz Taylor, let's go ahead and close out this baby, man. It's been a great show.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening along to Race Chat Live here on Blog Talk Radio. You can always catch us on any forms of podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, RSS Feed, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, GeoSavin, Podcast Addict, Deezer, Podchaser, YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to our website, the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network.com. Thanks to our sponsors, Phoenix Fitness, Bear Bowl, Market Talk Group, Carolina Sports Plus, Morta Music, Yellow Caution Flag Productions. And, of course, we'll see you the same bat time, same bat place next Tuesday night here on Blog Talk Radio. And with that being said, we'll have emails open for picks tomorrow morning into Thursday night. So get those picks in for Dover. And this has been the Caution Flag of Racing Radio, Chris Creighton, the DJ Music Man, Greg Moore, the mother bear of the 110 Nation, Miss Lee Reed, I'm the Tasmanian Devil, Flaggers Taz Taylor, saying good night. We'll see y'all next week.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.